Hey, what's going on, Cloud Scholars? I hope your day is going well. My name is Kieran Tross, and I'm here with another how-to video for you. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use protected actions, which is in preview mode, to protect any editing, updating, or any modifications to your conditional access policies. So let's first start off with defining what protected actions are. So what are protected actions in Azure Active Directory? So protected actions in Azure Active Directory are permissions that have been assigned to conditional access policies. When user attempts to perform a protected action, they must first satisfy the conditional access policies assigned to the required permissions. So in order for us to successfully complete this task, as always with Microsoft, you have to have certain license and roles. So when we talk about licenses, we're going to look at Azure AD Premium 1 and Premium 2 license in order for you to be able to do this, because that's what you're going to need for conditional access. And then when it comes to actually performing a conditional access, you're going to have the conditional access administrator or security administrator role. And also you can have global administrator there in order to complete this successfully. So one of the first things that we want to do when we're setting up these protected actions is the first thing that we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to go to authentication context. So we're going to go to Azure Active Directory, and then we're going to go down here to secure, and then we go to conditional access, and you see right here authentication context. Now you can also get to this screen as well if you went and logged in from Microsoft Entra Admin Center. I'm just going through this Azure portal to get this done. So over here you'll see it says getting started, and we have authentication context. So one of the things that we want to do is what I'm going to do is I am going to go to new authentication context, and I could name this, and let's read through this really quickly. So it says configure an authentication context that will be used to protect application data and actions, uses names and description that can be understood by application administrator. So authentication context has really been used within SharePoint and SharePoint sites back in the day, and even not even back in the day, even up to now, where you can use that so that this way that you can make sure that it's tagging, basically securing a specific SharePoint site, or you want some documentation that you want to tag, and you're like, okay, hey, listen, I want to apply this authentication context to this specific SharePoint site, and that site could be finance or whatever department, something that's confidential. And in order for your users to access that SharePoint site, they need to authenticate. So the way I like to look at authentication context is you first get onto your systems. Like if you're any user within your organization, they're going to go through a VPN, right? Or they're going to log in when they get to work. They're going to have to use their username and password. Once you get into the system, you're pretty much in the system, right? You might have other applications that you're using single sign-on, but you're in the system, you're in your environment. What authentication context says is, yeah, you're in the environment, but this is more secure than a lot of the other data. I want you to re-authenticate. So that's the way you kind of look at it for authentication context, and you're basically tagging highly confidential information. So you have this thing where it says, you have to name your authentication context. So we can just say protect CA policy, and you can call it that if you want to, right? So it's protect conditional access, right? So I'll just call it protect conditional access. Let me just do it that way. And then description, it will say MFA for anyone editing, and you can do creating, but we're just keeping this editing, conditional, if I could type, conditional access policies. All right, so that's good, right? And then we get to say save. So that part is great. We've got that all settled down. So what I'm going to do now is if I go to policies, right, I need to go ahead and create a conditional access policies. So what I want you to realize, if you look at this screen, the only message I'm getting here is IPv6 is coming to Azure Active Directory. There is nothing else saying anything. I don't have any restrictions right now. I could go into any of these conditional access policies and make a modification if I wanted to. But what I need to do is I'm going to say new policy. And if any of you have seen my videos, you know that I like to do this whole 1A, 1B, 2B, and all this other stuff because it just makes it easier for when you're reading your conditional access policies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to new policy, and I'm going to say 5A, and I'm just going to say protect CA policies, right? So that's going to be protect my conditional access policies. And then I have my users. I'm just going to say I can do all users, but only certain users in the organization have access to it, right? So I might as well just wrap it around a specific group. So if I do CA, these are my CA admins, right? So I can just throw it in there. And one of the great things about doing this is because we all know we work with, certain engineers, architects, whatever. Not everybody is, so focused when it comes to work, right? You want to make sure like, hey, listen, if you're going to make any modifications, you need to re-authenticate. It's making your environment more secure. But then you're also, I guess, kind of amplifying the awareness to your techs. In a weird way, some of you may be thinking, well, if you're doing this kind of stuff, why do I need to amplify your awareness? You should know what you're doing, but that isn't always the case. So we want to make sure that we're putting another barrier around it just in case we're breached, and also because of, people just doing silly stuff. So what I'm going to do next is cloud apps or actions. Over here is where you're going to see that the thing we set up earlier with that contextual authentication context. Excuse me, tongue twister just now. So authentication context, you're going to click here, and then where we're going to see is protect conditional access. That is the one that we just recently created. So when I click protect conditional access, I can come down here. I can have a bunch of conditions if I want to, but I'm perfectly fine leaving it the way it is. And then when it says grant, this is what I'm really more concerned about. I have a bunch of different options I can do. I can say require authentication strength, right? And if you have used authentication strength before, I'm not going to go into it with this video, but I have another video that talks about authentication strength, how you set that up. And you can have a bunch of different options. So remember, we're trying to keep our conditional access policies secure. So you might want to do something where you're saying, okay, we already know you're authenticated because you're here within the Azure portal. But what I want to do is I want to give you some more authentication. I want you to do something a little bit more. I can do something where it's like, hey, phishing resistant. Now I'm using a FIDO key, right? I could do anything like that if I want to. But for this purpose, I'm just gonna, leave it the way it is. Require multi-factor authentication. I'll just leave it to that one for this because this is only for demonstration purposes. And then once I go ahead and do that, I can just go ahead and say click on, and I can click create. So that conditional access policy has been created, which is basically going to protect all of our conditional access policies. But we're still not done. If you look here, we're not getting any message indicating that that is on. So if I do a refresh up here, still not getting anything at the moment. So what I need to do is I also need to go back to Azure Active Directory. And I'm going to go to roles and administrators. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to protected actions. So what exactly is the protected actions doing? How does that look? So if you look at the screen, we have our group, and that's our CA admins group, or whatever group you have in your organization that has the ability to modify conditional access policies. And then what we're doing is that middle area right there is our protect conditional access policy. That is our protected action, where it's like, okay, you want to get to the conditional access policies and make a modification. You need to now, if you're performing any of the actions, whether it's edit, update, etc., you need to now re-authenticate by the means within that conditional access policy, which I defined earlier. So back over here, when I go to protected actions, if I click on add, if I come down here, you see where it says conditional access authentication context, right? Remember, that is the authentication context we created earlier. And I'm going to choose it, and it's protect conditional access. From there, I can now have a bunch of permissions I can apply to, and there's 7 permissions, right? So you have the permissions where you can say, hey, if you need to update basic properties for conditional access, if you want to wrap it around, create conditional access, delete conditional access, update basic properties of custom rules, etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to choose a few just for this demonstration purposes, and I'm going to go with the first 3. And that's create, delete, update, any conditional access. And I believe there's other stuff for like, what is it called? Authentication context update. Oh, we can add this one here as well if we wanted to. And then we can click add, and then we click save. Okay, now back over at the conditional access policies, as you can see, we have a message which wasn't here before. It says certain actions on this page are protected by conditional access requirements. Click here to authenticate. And if I were to go into this same conditional access policy, you see editing is protected by additional access requirements. If I go back and I click on any of the other ones, let's say if I go session control, I'm getting the same thing. Editing is protected by additional access requirements. All right, and that's pretty much it. And that's how you protect your conditional access policies using protected actions. So I hope the information I provided you was beneficial. If you haven't done so already, please smash that like or subscribe button. Definitely take a lot of time to make these videos for you, and I enjoy making these videos for you. Well, you know, the goal is here at Cloud Scholars, which is to get you from scholar to consultant and from consultant to expert. Thank you, and see you next time.